Good morning. I hope that most of you at SGC's Toronto are familiar with Contour ELN, but I've been asked to show you some of the chemistry features in Contour ELN. So Contour ELN can work with lots of different chemical editors, and you can choose that under your personal settings, chemistry, which chemical editor. There's ChemDraw, IsisDraw, Marvin, and in the next release we also support SimXDraw. So if we go to an experiment, there are 4 section types which are chemistry aware, as it were. The simplest of those is a chemical sketch section, so we can add a chemical sketch section, and then you can either click to draw a new chemical sketch, so it'll open the chemical editor which you've chosen, and then you can draw some chemistry, reactions, molecules, text, etc. And close that, and then the chemistry is brought into the experiment, and all of these structures become searchable as well. The next section type for chemists is the chemical reaction section for synthetic chemistry, and this is a reaction scheme which is linked to a stoichiometric table. So we build up the reaction scheme. We can draw reactants manually by opening the editor, or we can import them from a database. We can go find reactant, and then we can search in a database of chemicals, which can be in-house chemicals or can link to databases of commercial materials. Oh, there's too many hits to list, so you can search by text or by structure, and then you find the structure you're looking for, and you double click and bring it into the reaction scheme. As I said, you can also draw a reactant just by opening your editor, drawing some chemistry, closing the editor. You can also copy and paste chemistry from any chemical program and paste it into these tables. Reagents, we provide a database of reagents. You can go find reagent. You can search by categories, so we could look for a coupling reagent, for example, and we can select. And these come in as text over the arrow. The chemistry is still in the database, it's still searchable. It's just convention and saves space in the reaction scheme. You can always copy chemistry between these different sections, so we can take this reactant, we can copy the reactant, and now we can paste it as the product. And the same way you can paste a reagent and move it to become a reactant if you want to show the chemistry, etc. And then you can edit these. You can double click on the row in the table, or you can double click on the structure. So you can edit these structures. And then they get brought back into the reaction scheme. If you don't know the structure of a reagent, or you can always just type the name, so you can have, a polymeric amine, and then you can type in a molecular weight or an equivalent molecular weight, so it will be able to calculate the quantities. So once you've got the chemistry all into the system, the first compound which you added gets this little star to show that that's the base reagent, the limiting reagent, and then you can enter ratios for the other components of the reaction. So you can have 2 equivalents of this, and maybe 0.2 equivalents of this, etc. And then it's a matter of choosing the quantity you're using of the of the limiting reagent. So you can either type in that as a mass, you can say I'm working on a 1 gram scale, and then everything else is calculated, or you could say I'm working on a 0.5 molar scale or something like that. And again, everything is calculated. If you're working on smaller quantities or larger, if you right-click, you can choose to work in kilograms, grams, and milligrams. So we could say that I'm working on a 25 milligram scale. Here it just changed the scale to milligrams in the one row, and everything else to the left is grams. If we go back to the personal settings where we chose our chemical editor, you can also choose to apply that scale to all the rows, so that when you change, now when I change something from grams to milligrams, it applies it to each row in the table. And again, we can choose, maybe we're working in micromoles rather than moles. When you have a product, you can type in the yield, and the quantity is calculated. You can change the name here, so this is product, it doesn't have the same name as the starting material. For solvents, if you want to specify solvents for reaction, you can go right-click and add a solvent, and there's a list of solvents available. You can also just type a solvent name, so we can go supersolve, and you can type the volumes of these. And any solvents down here in the solvent section, you can then select them. So you can say that the first reactant was dissolved in DMSO, and then the second one was dissolved in a different solvent, etc. If you have liquids or solutions, if you right-click on the top titles of these tables, you can select other columns to display. You can have a molarity column and a volume column. So if this was a 2 molar solution, for example, it would then calculate the volume. Or if it was a liquid and had a density, and if you bring in reagents from the database which are liquids, and they often have the density can come with them, but if you have a density, again you can type in a density and the volume is calculated. Again, you can choose different scales to have this. So you can build up your chemistry here. If you're taking this product onto another reaction step in a multi-step synthesis, you can right-click on the product and you can go New Section from Product, and it will add a new chemical reaction section underneath in the same experiment with this as the starting material, or we can go New Experiment from Product. So you can do this from another colleague's experiment. If they've given you a material as a starting material, you can go to their experiment, find it, and then go New Experiment from Product. If you have I don't think I have the right template, so I'll just go with a blank experiment. If you have a template with a related experiment section in it, it will automatically fill in that was a related experiment, so you can follow a synthetic sequence. So here you see the new experiment with that product now as the starting material. A few features which are coming in the next release, which is just about to be released, is in the reaction section. If you copy a reactant, so it's copied onto the clipboard, it copies the chemistry, but also copies the texture information. You can paste it into a text section or into a Word or something. It'll give you the name and the quantity in the solvent, etc. If you do the same with a product, copy product, paste that in, you get the weight, the yield, and the name of the product. You can also have automatic naming of chemistry. So here it brings in the chemical name automatically.